The alarm screamed across the station, drowning in a storm of red lights and chaos. Arielin moved like a shadow through the broken corridors, her breath quick and shallow. The metal walls shook as explosions ripped through distant sections. She stumbled, clutching her side where warm blood seeped through the torn fabric of her uniform. No one looked at her. Elvarian soldiers ran past, shouting commands, dragging the strong and the valuable toward safety pods. She was neither. She was always the one left behind, and tonight proved it again. The station was falling apart. Smoke curled in thick clouds, choking the air. Panels sparked overhead, sending showers of light that stung her eyes. Aria pressed against the wall, forcing her body to keep moving, even as her legs trembled. Her heart pounded loud in her ears, almost drowning the strange sound behind her, the skittering, the scrape of claws on metal. They were inside. The void phantoms had breached the hull dot. She ducked into a side corridor, clutching the emergency rail for balance. The smell of burning plastic filled her nose. In the distance, she heard the cries of her people, the commander's voice barking orders, not for her, never for her. She was just an extra body, weak and slow, a shadow that had no worth in there. Eyes. That truth hit hard now as pain spread from her wound, making her dizzy. If she collapsed here, no one would notice. No one would care, until she saw him. He was crouched behind an overturned console, a figure in dark human armor, streaked with dust and grime. His helmet was off, revealing short black hair and a face sharp with tension. His eyes locked on hers. Through the smoke, piercing, alive with something she had never seen directed at her before focus. He saw her, not as cargo, not as a burden. He looked at her like she mattered. For a moment, time froze. Then the console beside him exploded, and he moved, fast, too fast for her to react. The human lunged forward, grabbing her arm just as the floor shuddered and a wall section collapsed behind them. She gasped as his grip steadied her, pulling her close against his chest as he dragged her toward an open hatch in the floor. His voice cut through the roar of destruction, deep and commanding. "Come on, stay with me." Her breath hitched. No one had ever said that to her, not like this, not like a plea. She stumbled with him, her body weak but clinging to the sound of his words like lifeline threads. He lowered them both through the hatch into a maintenance shaft, sealing the door above just as something slammed against it with a metallic shriek. They landed hard on the narrow walkway below, darkness wrapping around them. The human reached for a light on his shoulder, its beam slicing through the gloom. He turned it on her, scanning her wound. His hands moved quickly, checking her side with gentle precision. She flinched, not from pain, but from the strange warmth of his touch. Humans were not like Elvarians. They didn't look at weakness the same way. "You're bleeding bad," he muttered, his voice low but steady. His gaze flicked up to hers again, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel invisible. That realization burned hotter than the pain. The station groaned above them. Another explosion rattled the walkway. Shadows danced along the metal walls, but beneath the noise, another sound grew louder, a skittering, clicking rhythm. The void. Phantoms were hunting. Aria froze, her throat tightening. Those things were nightmares, born of living darkness, their bodies like shifting smoke with fangs of bone. No light, no warmth, only cold hunger. They didn't just kill, they erased. Human moved closer, pulling a compact rifle from his back, his eyes sharp as steel. He glanced at her, his voice calm despite the echo of claws on metal. "We stay quiet. We move when I say." She nodded, unable to find her voice. For years, she had dreamed of someone noticing her not as a failure, not as a shadow, but she never imagined it would happen like this, in fire and darkness, hunted by nightmares. And yet, here he was, standing between her and death without hesitation. The sound came again, louder, closer. The human shifted, raising his weapon, his body. Tense. The beam of his light swept across the corridor, catching glimpses of movement that made Arya's heart stop. Black limbs, long and thin, clinging to the ceiling like spiders. A hiss rolled through the air, chilling her to the bone. The human turned to her, his face inches from hers, his voice barely a whisper now. "They're here." And then the lights went out. The shaft plunged into darkness, so thick it swallowed sound. Arya gripped the rail, trembling, listening to her own heartbeat pounding like a drum. The human's hand brushed hers, firm, grounding her. And then, from the black, came a low, hungry growl. She swallowed hard, her breath catching in her throat as the human whispered one word that felt like both a promise and a warning. "Run." The sound exploded a scream like metal tearing. Something hit, the walkway shaking it violently. Arya's scream died in her throat as the shadows around them began to move. The lights died as if swallowed by a black ocean. Silence fell, sharp and cold, broken only by the faint rasp of breathing. Then came the sound-slow, deliberate clicks, echoing like knives scraping metal. Aurielin froze, every nerve screaming. Her vision was nothing but endless dark, and in that dark, the shadows moved. Something brushed against the metal railing inches from her hand. She jerked back, slamming into the human's chest. His arm came around her instinctively, strong and steady, shielding her even though they couldn't see. His voice came as a whisper, warm against her ear. "Don't make a sound." Her throat closed on a cry. The presence was closer now. She could feel it, the weight of something alive, hungry, sliding through the dark like liquid death. She gripped his armor, trembling, wondering why he wasn't afraid. Or maybe he was, but he hid it so well. The human shifted, one arm holding her while his other hand worked fast in the dark. A soft click, the faint glow of his visor returned for a second, just enough for her to see the sharp outline of his jaw, the tension in his eyes. Then he killed the light again. The clicks stopped. A silence stretched, heavy enough to crush bone. Arya held her breath until her lungs burned. She had heard stories of the void phantoms, how they could smell fear, how they killed without leaving a trace. But she had never believed the stories until now, until she felt their presence crawling along her skin like cold smoke. The human leaned close again. His voice was barely a breath. "We move, slowly." He tugged her hand, guiding her along the narrow walkway. She followed, every step balanced between survival and death. The shaft felt endless. Metal groaned underfoot, and each sound made her heart race harder. Somewhere in the dark, something exhaled, a hiss like frozen wind curling around her ears. Slid along the wall, his body always shielding hers, his warmth the only real thing in this nightmare. She wondered why he cared. No Ilverian would have risked this for her. She was small, frail, forgettable. She should have died back there, a name no one remembered. And yet this human held her hand like she mattered more than the stars. A flicker of light ahead broke her thoughts. Emergency strips came to life, dim red glowing like blood along the floor. The power was flickering back, but the weak glow was worse than darkness. It revealed shapes, black, skeletal limbs stretched along the walls, clinging to pipes. Dozens of eyes shimmered like liquid silver, all fixed on them. Her breath caught. The creatures didn't move. They just stared, silent as death. The human tightened his grip on her hand, his jaw rigid. "They're waiting," she whispered, voice cracking. "I know," he muttered. "They're hunting." One of the phantoms shifted, its body sliding like oil, limbs twisting in unnatural angles. Arya's knees nearly buckled, but the human pulled her closer, his arm firm around her waist now. "We're going to make it," he said, not a question. A promise. His words lit something inside her, small but fierce. For a heartbeat, she believed him. Then a deafening crash shook the shaft. A section of the walkway ahead collapsed into the abyss. Their escape path gone, the human cursed under his breath. The phantoms hissed as one, the sound sharp and cold, slicing through the metal air. They began to move, crawling, flowing across. The walls like living shadows. The human swung his rifle up, the glow of its charge painting his face in blue fire. "Run!" He fired. The blast split the dark, lighting the shaft in a strobe of horror, the phantoms lunging, jaws like bone blades. Claws flashing. Arya's scream ripped free as the walkway beneath them tilted violently. The human grabbed her, pulling her against him as the floor gave way, dropping them into a spiral of falling steel and fire. They plunged into blackness, weightless, the roar of collapsing metal above them. She clung to him, her nails biting into his armor, knowing only this: if she let go, she was dead. When they hit the lower deck, the impact drove the breath from her lungs. Pain flared white-hot, but before she could move, his hand was on her cheek, his voice harsh and alive. "Stay with me. Do you hear me?" She nodded weakly, tears stinging her eyes. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't looking past her. He was looking at her like she was the only thing in this burning, breaking world. But above them, in the broken shaft, silver eyes glowed in the dark. They weren't done. The deck groaned under their bodies, tilted and cracked from the fall. Smoke curled from the shattered walkway above, glowing faintly in the emergency lights. Arya blinked hard, her vision swimming as pain spread through her side. The human Ethan, she thought she heard his name, was already pulling her upright, his breath harsh, armor dented, but his grip steady. "Move," he said, voice low, sharp. "They're coming." She didn't need to look up to know what he meant. The sound told. Her everything, the claws clicking against steel, the whisper of bodies slithering like ink in water. Dozens of eyes shimmered in the red glow above, blinking in unnatural rhythm. They weren't rushing. Not yet. They were circling, savoring the hunt. Ethan slung his rifle across his back, then crouched to her level, hands checking her injuries. She winced when his fingers brushed her ribs, but he didn't stop. His face was all focus, his jaw tight, his dark eyes flicking to hers with something like fire. "You can walk?" "Yes," she lied, even as her legs trembled. She wasn't. Slowing him down. She couldn't. He nodded once, then offered his hand. She hesitated a heartbeat, staring at his finger-strong, calloused human. No Ilvarian would have done this. They would have left her to die, said it was the efficient choice. That was the way of her people. She took his hand. Warmth shocked her, spreading up her arm. For a strange moment, the fear receded. They ran. The corridor was a broken spine of steel, panels torn open to the vacuum beyond. Stars glittered through jagged holes, cold and merciless. Arya's breath came in gasps as they weaved through debris, every sound amplified by the pounding of her heart. Behind them, the phantoms moved with terrifying grace, crawling along walls and ceiling, their limbs bending in ways no body should. Faster, Ethan urged, pulling her when her steps faltered. "I'm trying," she whispered, her voice breaking. She hated the weakness in it. They reached a sealed bulkhead, its panel glowing faint blue. Ethan cursed under his breath and dropped to one knee, prying open the control plate with a tool from his belt. Sparks hissed, and Arya crouched beside him, trembling as the sound of claws drew closer. "Why are you helping me?" The words escaped before she could stop them. He didn't look up. "What? You don't even know me." You're kind, you shouldn't care. His hands kept moving, fast and sure. That's where you're wrong. He glanced up, meeting her, eyes with something that pinned her in place. I see you. Her breath caught. 2 words, simple, but they struck like a pulse through her veins. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her people, not anyone. She opened her mouth to speak, but the bulkhead groaned and slid open just enough for them to slip through. Go, he snapped, shoving her ahead. They stumbled into a maintenance bay, lit by the sick glow of emergency strips. Rusted tools lay, scattered across the floor. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal. Ethan sealed the door behind them, locking it with a manual lever. For a heartbeat, silence returned, broken only by the hum of the failing station. Arya sagged against the wall, clutching her ribs, her chest heaving. Ethan stood near the door, rifle ready, eyes scanning the shadows. She wanted to thank him, to say something, anything, but the words tangled in her throat. Then the pounding started. The bulkhead shook violently as something slammed against it. Again and again, each hit sending vibrations through the floor. The metal bent inward, screeching, like an animal in pain. Arya flinched, terror clawing up her spine. They'll break through, she whispered. Not yet, Ethan said, voice calm, but she saw his jaw tighten. Then, before either could speak again, a new sound cut through the chaos of voice. Cold. Familiar. Open this door, human. Arya's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. Commander Tolerus. Ethan's brows furrowed. He flicked a glance at her, then back at the door. Friend of yours? Her throat tightened. He's my commander. Great, Ethan muttered, but his rifle stayed up. The pounding stopped. Silence pressed in for a moment. And Tolerus spoke again, his tone dripping venom. You've got something that belongs to me. Step away from her. Ethan didn't move. His voice was flat steel when he answered. Not happening. The bulkhead creaked as the manual override wheel began to turn from the other side. Arya stared, her heart slamming against her ribs. She didn't know what scared her more, the monsters or the man trying to reach her now. The door groaned wider. Shadows bled through the gap, and then the lights flickered and died again. Asterisk darkness swallowed everything again. The bulkhead's groaning stopped, but not because the danger was gone. The silence was worse. It crawled into the bones, heavy and waiting. Arya Len's breath came fast, her pulse roaring in her ears. She gripped the edge of a broken console, the metal biting into her palms. Somewhere beyond the door, her commander was out there, and so were the phantoms. She didn't know which one terrified her more. Then a soft glow broke the black. Ethan's visor flickered alive, painting his face in faint blue light. His jaw was tight, his rifle ready. He moved like a shadow given purpose, calm but coiled with tension. Stay behind me, he whispered. Her voice shook. She swallowed and tried again. Ethan, if Tolerus opens that door, then I shoot first, he said coldly. No hesitation. Her breath hitched. No one had ever defied a commander for her. No one. She didn't even know what that felt like, being worth a risk. The sound came then, a screech like tearing metal. Not from the door, from above. Arya jerked, her head up just as the ceiling split open like paper, shards raining down. A void phantom dropped through the gap, its limbs twisting, its skin like smoke wrapped around bone. Silver eyes burned in its face like frozen stars. Arya screamed before she could stop herself. The creature lunged. Ethan fired. The blast split the dark, blue fire lighting the bay for a single heartbeat, a strobe of nightmare. The phantom writhed, screeching, but it didn't fall. Another shape dropped behind it, then another. The ceiling crawled with them, dozens of silver eyes blinking in the flicker of gunfire. Run! Ethan barked, grabbing her arm. They sprinted through the maintenance bay, boots pounding on the metal deck, claws scraping behind them. A phantom slammed onto the floor where Arya had stood a second before, its jaws snapping with bone-white teeth. Sparks burst from a shattered console as Ethan's shot tore it apart. The bay's far door loomed ahead, half-hanging from its frame. Beyond it, only shadows. No choice. They plunged through. The corridor stretched like an endless throat, twisting, broken. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes. Gravity wavered her. Her stomach lurched as the floor tilted, groaning like a dying beast. The station was tearing itself apart. Ethan pushed her forward, his voice sharp. Escape pods are on deck 12. We're close. Close, but not close enough. Behind them, the phantoms poured through the door like black liquid, their limbs bending, their movements unnatural and soundless, but for the hiss that curled around her ears. They ran harder. The air burned in her. Lungs, her ribs screaming with every step, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Ethan's hand stayed on her back, steadying her when her legs faltered. Then, a sound ripped through the corridor, something primal, something alive with hunger. The bulkhead ahead burst inward as the largest phantom yet slid. Into view, its body towering, its jaws splitting wider than any nightmare she had ever imagined. She froze. Her blood turned to ice. The creature blocked the hall completely, its limbs coiling like serpents, its silver eyes fixed on her. Behind her, more of them crawled closer, closing the trap. Ethan didn't slow. He stepped in front of her, rifle raised, face grim. "Move when I say," he said without looking back. "You can't fight that." She cried, panic cracking her voice. His lips twitched in something almost like a smile. "Watch me." He fired. The blast struck the monster square in the chest, but it barely flinched. The thing lunged, a wall of shadow and bone. Ethan threw himself sideways, pulling her with him as the creature's claws ripped through the floor. Where they had stood, the impact shook the station, tearing cables from the ceiling. They crashed against a wall, breathless, trapped between the beast and the swarm behind them. Arya's mind spun. There was no way out until her gaze caught something out above them, a hatch, marked with a sigil for energy conduits. The core, her people called it the heart, system feeding raw power through the station. Overloaded, and everything in this section would burn in white fire, including the monsters. Including them, she looked at Ethan, her chest heaving, her voice barely a whisper. "I know a way to stop them." His eyes snapped to hers. "What way?" "It'll kill me." He stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head, fierce. "Not happening." The corridor shook again. The monster roared, its breath cold as death rolling over their faces. Ethan grabbed her shoulders, his voice a growl. "You hear me. Arya, I didn't come this far to watch you die." Something inside her broke and rebuilt in the same heartbeat. No one had ever said words like that to her. The hatch groaned above, dust raining down. The creature lunged again, and Arya made her choice. She tore free of Ethan's grip, leaping for the ladder that led up to the hatch dot. His voice exploded behind her. "Arya, no!" She didn't look back, because for the first time in her life, someone saw her, and she was going to make that matter. Asterisk. The hatch slammed shut behind her, sealing Ethan's voice into a muffled echo below. Arya climbed fast, her hands slipping on the cold rungs as sparks rained down from ruptured conduits. The shaft smelled of ozone and burning metal, heat pulsing from the core chamber above. Every muscle in her body screamed to stop, but she didn't. She couldn't. If the phantoms reached the upper decks, the entire rescue fleet would die. She reached the top platform and froze. The heart loomed before her like a living sun, its spherical chamber glowing with raw, searing energy. Blue-white arcs leaped between towering pylons, humming with lethal power. The air throbbed with heat, making her skin prickle, her bones ache. One wrong move and she'd be vapor. Her fingers trembled as she tore open the access panel. The overload protocol was clear in her mind, one of the first things they drilled into every Elvarian. Trigger it, and the core would consume itself. In seconds, burning everything in this section to pure light. And yet, her breath caught as she touched the sequence keys. Because now, for the first time in her life, someone was running toward her, not away. Aria! The voice thundered through the shaft below. She froze, heart hammering as boots slammed against the rungs. A moment later, Ethan burst through. The hatch like a storm, armor dented, blood streaking his jaw, his rifle slung empty on his back. His chest heaved, but his eyes were fire. "What the hell are you doing?" he roared, striding toward her got, her throat tightened. She couldn't look at him as she whispered, ending it. He grabbed her wrist, yanking her back from the console. "By killing yourself? That's your plan? It's the only way." She snapped, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. They'll keep coming. If this core overloads, it'll burn them all. It'll save everyone. It'll kill you," he shot back. His voice like steel cracking under heat. Aria met his gaze then, and wished she hadn't. Because in those dark, human eyes was something raw, something that made her chest ache worse than the wound in her ribs. "I'm not worth saving," she whispered. For a second, silence crushed the room, broken only by the humming heart. Then Ethan's grip tightened, and his words came low, fierce, shaking. "You're wrong. You've been wrong your whole damn life." She blinked, stunned, as he stepped closer, his voice rough with something that wasn't just anger. "You think I dragged you out of fire, fought monsters, and bled half my body dry because you're nothing? No, Aria. I did it because I see you, every damn part of you." Her breath hitched. The glow of the heart painted his face in blue fire, his shadow stretching long behind him like a guardian carved from night. And in that moment, with death clawing at the station walls, she felt something she had never known. Being seen, being wanted, being more than invisible. A scream split the silence. They spun as the hatch behind them blew apart. The monster filled the opening like a living nightmare, its body unfolding into the chamber, limbs coiling like blades of bone and smoke. Its eyes burned silver fire as it hissed, the sound vibrating through the metal deck. The others were behind it, a swarm of shadows clinging to the shaft. Ethan shoved Aria behind him, drawing a combat blade glowing faint orange from its heated edge. His voice was a growl. "Get to cover." "No," she shouted, stepping beside him. "We fight together." The creature lunged. Ethan met it head on, the blade slicing through one of its limbs in a burst of black mist. The phantom shrieked, striking back with claws that whipped sparks from the deck. Aria grabbed a fallen plasma cutter, its weight strange in her hands, but her grip firm. They fought like two storms colliding, Ethan's strikes brutal and fast, Aria's movements desperate but sharp. The chamber roared with energy and screams, sparks raining like alien fire. Then the monster reared back, jaws splitting wider than before, its core glowing with a cold light. Ethan was too close. Too slow. Aria saw it in a flash, the opening, the one thing that could end this. She hurled the cutter into the heart's exposed conduit. The world erupted in white. Light swallowed everything, the phantom shrieks twisting. Into nothingness, the roar of energy cracking like thunder. Aria felt herself lifted, weightless, heat searing her skin, air ripped from her lungs. For an endless heartbeat, there was no sound, no pain, only light. And then darkness. Silence. Until warmth touched her hand. "Aria, stay with me." His voice was a ragged whisper in the void. She tried to speak, but the darkness pulled harder, dragging her down. The last thing she saw was his face, blurred and broken, bending over her like a dying star, refusing to fade. Silence. Not the screaming silence of death, but something softer, weightless, like a world holding its breath. Arya floated in it, suspended between shadow and light, her body numb, her thoughts drifting like fragments of glass. Was this the end? Had the heart burned her away like starlight on water? Then warmth brushed her hand out. It was small at first, just a whisper against her skin, but it grew, steady and real. Fingers curled around hers, grounding her. She tried to open her eyes. At first, the world was only white haze. Then shapes took form, silver walls, faint hums, the sterile glow of medbay lights, and a face. Ethan. He sat beside her pod, armor gone, blood still drying along his jaw, his eyes red with exhaustion but alive, fixed on her with a look so intense it stole the air from her lungs. When he saw her eyes flutter open, something broke across his face, a smile raw and unguarded, like sunlight after endless night. "You're awake," he whispered, voice hoarse. Arya blinked, her throat tight, her words tangled like broken wires. "Where?" "Rescue ship," he said gently. "We made it out, barely." She stared at him, the memories slamming back, the monsters, the heart, the explosion that felt like the universe tearing apart. "How?" "You overloaded the core." He chuckled, but there was no humor, only relief laced with fear. "Damn near killed us both. But we got out." "Us," she echoed softly, tasting the word like something fragile. He nodded, leaning closer, his hand still wrapped around hers, like he'd never let go. "You scared the hell out of me, Arya." Her chest tightened. I thought," her voice cracked. She looked away, ashamed, her fingers trembling in his. "I thought I had to do something to matter. That if I died saving them, maybe I wouldn't be nothing anymore." Ethan was silent for a moment. Then his hand moved, gently cupping her face, tilting it back toward him. His touch was warm, rough, achingly real. "Listen to me," he said, voice low, fierce, every word carved from truth. "You were never nothing. Not to me. From the moment I saw you in that fire, you mattered. More than this damn station. More than the war. You mattered." Her breath shuddered out of her. No one had ever said words like that to her. Not her people. Not anyone. And now this human, this stubborn, reckless, impossible human, had torn open the sky just to tell her she was seen. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent, burning trails of something she had buried all her life. She tried to speak, to thank him, but all that came was a whisper. "Why?" His lips curved in the smallest, softest smile. "Because you're Arya. That's enough." For a long moment, neither moved. The med bay hummed, the stars beyond the viewport drifting like silver dust. She could still feel the echo of death close by, but here, in this fragile pocket of quiet, life burned bright, and so did something else. She reached for his hand with both of hers, holding it like an anchor in an endless dark. And for the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, entirely. The door slid open with a hiss, breaking the spell. Dr. Vera entered, her Elvarian eyes sweeping the room, then softening just slightly as they landed on Arya. "You've caused quite the stir," she murmured, her voice almost kind. Arya managed a faint smile. "I suppose I'm noticed now." Ethan's laugh was quiet, warm, and when she looked at him, his gaze said everything words couldn't. As the rescue ship drifted through starlight, far from the broken skeleton of the station, Arya lay back. Against the soft cradle of the pod, Ethan's hand still tangled in hers. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight lift, the crushing silence of being unseen, unloved, unwanted. Now there was something else. Hope. And a promise she would never forget. He saw her completely. The end.